Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. This evening's performance is about to begin. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to the JustNabz podcast with Nabil and Nabila. Hello Nabs,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm fine, thank you. This is such a fine day here. Sun is shining, it's bloody cold, winter is coming. So yeah, it's your turn
The
now.
best weather. It's cloudy here and cold and raining.
Well, not sorry. So we have a very nice topic for you today. You know how we've been always very careful and ranting about how you should take care of yourself. So what about an episode on self-care and how we at least try to take care of ourselves? We may
When I say
fail.
self-care, what do you think of? What's the first thing you think of?
To me, self-care is not talking to anyone, like closing up and
That's the best
taking
form
some
of self-care.
yeah, take time for yourself. That's it. That's what I think of. I've been having like these moments lately where I just shut off every single communication mean, and I just focus on myself, which means not doing anything, or at least doing whatever I fancy doing in that moment. How about you?
So for me, self-care is taking care of your well-being. Sometimes when you hear the word self-care, you think of, candlelight and bubble baths and face masks. And for me, it's not just that. I mean, that's part of it. If that's how you take care of yourself, by all means. But I also feel like it's a lot deeper than that. And it's first confronting the messy sides, the messy parts of yourself, and just letting yourself know that you are okay. So it's facing things, ugly things about yourself. Maybe you've been negative self-talking, and it's just taking that and comforting yourself and correcting the way you speak to yourself and the way you think about yourself. That's it for me.
Yeah.
Well, part of it, but that's like the main thing for me.
Do you think we should allow sometimes to we should allow ourselves sometimes to be in denial? So you know how sometimes we rather be in denial about something, about the messy side, to just procrastinate on dealing with it.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
And
when I don't want to face something.
It feels kind of good because you say that's a problem for the future. It feels good in that moment in time. And I do think now I'm not an expert or anything, so I'm just talking about myself. And I do think I that's a bit. I don't want to say healthy because I don't know. Generally, it's not, but it kind of feels so. Like I get all my problems, I put them in a box, and I send them to the future.
But then at some point you're gonna have to face them anyway.
Yeah.
And
But
then
is it
sometimes it's
is
going
it
to be a messier problem because you just keep adding more stuff to the box. And then
that's true.
you're dealing with more junk than what you started off with.
It's true. But is it really the sooner the better? Because if it's something really big, which I can sort out today or tomorrow, and I want to take a day off, just to, just to, how you said the 2 episodes ago, just to rest and just to, uh, I don't, it's not healing, but just to get some energy back. Am I going
I think it
to?
takes a while. I don't think it's a once-off thing. It's a constant process.
Hmm.
Self-care. It's not just one day, let me face all my problems. Okay, let me solve everything
Yeah,
in
no, no,
one
no,
day. It's
sure.
just you take it slowly and one day at a time, and you just keep you persevere. But sometimes you're going to end up back at the beginning. You circle all around and then you end up where you started. And for me, it's just about not giving up, and you just continue until the battle has been won. I mean, we're not ever going to be perfect. We all have our issues and our traumas and whatnot, but I think the goal is living the most content life you can, living in the most content way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and having all
Oh,
your needs met.
another thing that makes me feel good when I have these moments is to uh to put myself in another dimension, which doesn't mean doing drugs, but I
Oh, yes,
like,
old universe, Nabil.
yeah, I like watching TV series or sitcoms like Modern Family, where I just you just feel like you're part of a completely different environment.
Yes, do you know
Uh,
what series that is for me? What I just got hooked on recently?
what?
Ted Lasso.
Well, I've watched that.
Have you watched
Um,
it?
yeah, of course.
Oh, I love it.
Apple gave me a free subscription, so I might as well go with
I
it.
also used my free trial for that.
Yeah. Mm. But yeah, and to be fair, recently, instead of Modern Family, I've been, yeah, reading this book. It's quite famous, Anna Karenina by Tolstoy, which is a whole story. It's very much similar to Downton Abbey. Have you ever heard of it? It's a like a TV series
Wait,
on this.
have I heard of Downton Abbey, or have I heard?
Yeah, about Downton Abbey.
Yeah, we were talking about it in the last episode, remember?
Bloody hell, yes! I completely
I
forgot.
love Downton
Oh yeah.
Abbey.
Yeah, of course. So it's, yeah, I mean, Downton Abbey is very similar to Anna Karenina. Um, so yeah, I've been hooked on this, and when I start reading, it's like as I said, in another dimension, in another universe. So my problems, just I can't see my problems from there. Sorry.
So you send me this map, okay?
Yeah,
So speaking of alternate universes, what if we had an alternate world? So you sent me this map of what Africa would have looked like without colonization.
yeah,
And it's very interesting. South Africa would have been Zululand
yeah,
slash Khoisans, and it would have been like Mozambique would have fallen into South Africa, part of Namibia, part of Zimbabwe. We would all
yeah.
be one country.
And what strikes the most with me is Egypt.
Egypt
So
is
Egypt
massive.
it was massive. It's taken up from the Mediterranean Sea down to Congo, down to the very middle of Africa. That is massive. So you can just see what the English did. to Egypt.
Oh, I remember. So um, like so Muslim people, we go to madrasa.
Yeah,
So I remember when we were younger in madrasa, they would always talk about Abyssinia, and I
yeah.
see it on this map. And I always used to be like, what? What is Abyssinia? Like, that word always just randomly gets stuck in my head. You know when words randomly get stuck in your
Yeah, of
head
course.
that and I
Abyssinia.
always think of this word, and now I'm seeing it on this map.
So Abyssinia is one
The
of the
Horn of
countries,
Africa.
yeah, and it's one of the countries Italy colonized. But it is very,
I see Zanzibar would have been its a whole country on its own. Interesting. I love Zanzibar, the island. The people there are so friendly.
oh, I've never been there.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
of course.
beautiful. But they're so poor because of
Yeah,
the Tanzanian government taking advantage of them. But it's such a beautiful little island.
yeah. So if you look at this map, so Morocco, when it got colonized, it was like this, and then they took the king, which was called Sultan at the time, and they exiled him to Madagascar, which was called Marina. Uh, and he stayed there until 1957, I reckon, until he came back and regained power from the French. And when the French were off the country, there were huge celebrations. So, if you were, let's do this
Of
little
course.
game. If you were uh, living uh, under a colonizing government, how would you have managed to take care of yourself? I mean, self-care in that environment is on a has to be it has to be on another level. Um, would you have had any coping mechanism you can think of helping you during um, colonization? Was I breaking up? Okay, so I'll rephrase it. If you were living under the colonization, can you think of any coping mechanism you would have had, self-care mechanism, uh, to thrive day by day and not lose faith in life, let's say?
Under colonization, like being ruled
Yes.
by the British
Yes,
or the
so
Dutch.
we all do know how you hate colonization. So you would have hated life there. So can you think such an extreme environment of any mechanism to cope with it and to thrive and uh, you know to go on?
I probably would have been one of those people who were arrested for fighting the system, but
Oh
I
wow.
think no wait, that was apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
Apartheid, it was Afrikaans, white Afrikaans rule. But before that, under the British, I don't think it would have been so simple. I don't think people really knew they were being oppressed because the British would put like rose covered glasses on them and make it seem like they were rescuing them and this is a good life we're giving you. But it's tricky, and I think this is where the issue comes in with self care and community care. Like, if your environment is not conducive for you to live in, it makes self care very difficult. So, I think about like really rough areas in South Africa, gang ridden, very poor or poverty stricken communities. Now, if you're living in this environment where you're living day by day, hand to mouth, and you cannot even afford a loaf of bread, there's no self care. if your community's needs are not being taken care of, if you don't have a library, for example, you don't have proper schools, proper
Playground.
infrastructure, it makes self-care very difficult.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it's something I've also been thinking about a lot is when people are released from prison and they're just thrown back into the same environment that, that led to them being put into prison in the first place. And how there's no or very little resources to integrate them back into society and to give them a better life and to prevent future generations from ending up in prison. Personally, I don't believe in prison systems, but yeah,
Hmm.
it's a reality. And
We're going to get to that. That's really interesting, and we can get into that later. What I think is, so as you said, there's self care and community care. Uh, from what I can see, um, in when you live in such sensible areas, be it in the past or now. So if I were a guy from Palestine, let's say, um, I don't think self care as an individual care is has any effect. To be fair, I I think that under such conditions, the only care that's there is community care. So self care and community care come to coincide. There's a juxtaposition of the two, and um, so and the same goes for when you uh, get released from prison. So many times, at least here in Italy, they suggest you find a community to rehabilitate yourself. So when you drink too much, when you're an alcoholist and you drink too much, the first thing you get suggested is to join a community of other people having the same problem. So as the human species, we like to to feel like other people are feeling the same pressure we are, the same problems we are. In Italian, we say mal comune mezzo gaudio, which means when there's something bad happening, sharing it drops it by half, drops the burden
a
by
problem
half.
halved is a what? A problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Didn't know that. So that's where community care comes. And mind yourself, when we talk about community, it's not a geographical community. So it's not your neighborhood, not necessarily. Community is in a wide sense. Like you can have a community of I don't know, of Twitter users, for instance. You can see on Twitter, it's the best example. You have many communities: the Formula One community, the football community, the Muslim community. So you just find things that make yourself similar to others. So I do think that under such conditions, there's only community care and there's no self care per se. I only think that community care comes to play. And even if you're not under such circumstances, I think you can find something good in communities. Just the episode we did with Zahra, she kind of found her strength in communities, and that is really good. It helps much more than just trying to deal with everything by yourself. So yeah, going to prisons. Um, so make your case on why prisons shouldn't exist, and I'll make mine on why prisons should exist, but they shouldn't be like this.
It shouldn't be like this, but also it's a form of it dates back to the times of slavery and white supremacists asserting their authority and policing how people should live and dictating. Fair enough, there should be punishments for crimes, but prisons are just a way to incarcerate people and keep, people down, people who you don't want in your community, to keep them out the way so that you can, do whatever you please. And it weakens communities. If you look at just the African families, so the heads of the house are generally men. And in African communities, a lot of African communities, women have had to step up and be the main figures, because for decades men were taken out to be slaves or imprisoned, or they had to move away to towns to work. And the woman had to step up and be the sole provider of the house. And I feel like men and women equally contribute to a household, and they add different things, but they create a whole environment. Anyways, so if you take the man out of the situation, it destabilizes families. And a lot of young boys, I don't know about you, but boys need a father figure in their lives. And if your father is in prison, you either going to choose, you have to be very strong-willed to choose a better life, or you're going to end up down the same path, which often
Um,
happens.
so
So for me, so
what I think,
basically, I think that it destabilizes communities.
okay, so um, on on boys needing a father figure, uh, I think it's only if you were born with a father. So if since you were born you were used to having, for instance, just one mother, one single mother, or two mothers, you kind of don't need necessarily that father figure. It's a bit different. Of course, if you were born and you were so attached to your father, you are going to need that figure going up in your life. But if you were not born with it, I don't think, I don't know, but I don't think you are necessarily going to need one. As far as prisons are concerned, I think that prisons, the very essence of prisons is a temporary, not permanent, a temporary um, limitation and division between those who can stay in a community, the free community, let's call it, and those who cannot stay there. And I think it's the prison system. There has to be a prison, for instance, because where are you going to put rapists? Are you going to allow rapists to just live on or
No, you
just
punish.
stay? And
Yeah, there
how you
should be
punish?
punishment.
Yeah, how do you punish a rapist? You have to incarcerate a rapist to put the rapist in a different geographical position, to then take care of its punishment and their rehabilitation. What I think is prisons should be not just a mean to punish, but just a mean to rehabilitate, to
But then
kind
yeah,
of.
so they wouldn't call it a prison.
It would be a prison. I'm not like I don't have any issue with the name per se.
I
Um,
do.
it, it's I do think it's prison, because then again, if we get a rapist or a pedophile, um, there's no other way to deal with these people other than putting them in prison, because otherwise you're not guaranteeing the security, the safety of those innocent people living in a community. Um, so I think prisons should be there. What also should be there is a process of rehabilitation. So if you take a boy who stole an apple, for instance, and you imprison the boy, or who was just smoking a joint in a place where cannabis is not legal, if you take this boy and you put him in a prison for, let's say just 1 week, and you put him in a prison for 1 week with the current state of prisons, I can assure you that once he's out, he's not going to smoke joints only. It's going to be far worse. So what I think is, first of all, cannabis should be legal. But other than that,
Yeah.
if something is illegal, try to rehabilitate, try to use that process in prisons. So prisons should not be the same for every single crime. I think that killing someone or smoking a joint are two different things, and even killing someone and doing cocaine or heroin are two very different things. So they shouldn't have the same treatment. The latter are which I'm talking about, like boys and girls and uh, people of all sorts doing drugs, for instance. We should focus more on their rehabilitation, and trying to push them back into a community rather than punishing them just in a way like saying, okay, you're a different human being and you deserve punishment, you're useless.
And then on the other hand, on the opposite end of the scale, you have Israeli prison systems where they are, for absolutely no reason, okay, besides to cause chaos and destabilize an entire country to take over, they're throwing innocent people into prison,
Yeah,
torturing them. In Iraq as well, people get abused so badly in prison. Pregnant women are giving birth in prisons. There was that story recently where the 6 Palestinian prisoners escaped using spoons. And then, this is
yeah,
considered the world's strongest army and, well protected prisons. And these people escaped, and it was humiliating for them. And because of that, they've now resorted to torturing those people's families. And yeah, I don't.
yeah.
Israeli prisons need to go, and I think the
No, 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 no,
US,
no, no,
the
no, 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 no. Israel needs to go.
Israel, yeah, Israel as a whole needs
It's a
to
bit
go.
different. Yeah.
The whole state, the whole illegal
Yeah.
apartheid state needs to
Have
go.
you have you ever been anywhere near a prison?
Yes, I've been into a prison.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was it in Cape Town or?
No, it was here in my hometown. But I
Okay.
just went into the
Oh,
women's section. Obviously, you're not allowed in the
men's
men,
section. Was
yeah.
it uh like a guide in school? I know that in America sometimes they bring uh some some youngsters to prisons to just say you're going to end up there if you behave badly. That's
No, no,
that's
no, it
fucked up.
wasn't. It was with a group. So how we're talking about community care and
Hmm.
reforming prisons. So there is a Muslim community um, board that takes care of Muslim prisoners, especially like integrating them back into society, taking care of them, and all that. So it was actually with that group, and this lady just goes in and teaches Islam to Muslim prisons and just keeps them in touch with their religion and
Mm. Yeah.
motivates them and stuff like that.
Mm.
Sort of like also therapy-ish. So yeah, I went with this lady, and like you're sitting in a room full of prisoners, like women who've murdered, women who've stolen,
Yeah.
and they're just normal people. Like the conversations you
Mm,
have
mm.
with them are just normal, and it was a strange experience. In the background you can hear like chains clanging and screaming and shouting, and but when you're
Oh
in this
wow.
room with people and they talk about their crime so like blasé, and I mean some of them committed crimes because of a man. Well, most of them actually committed crimes because of men in their lives, and a lot of them commit crimes to protect themselves.
You just said that men are essential in a family.
Yeah,
Please
in a
stand
traditional
by.
family. But because of decades of destabilizing men and colonization, it's
Mm.
messed up a lot of men in our community.
No, of course, I wouldn't know. So I'll trust you on that. I think that the thing about prisons is I've never been into a prison, but once I was driving home with a friend of mine, and it was late in the night. It was like 2 a.m. and it was pouring. It was so rainy that night. And he said when we were going back home, and he said, "Oh, there's the prison here nearby." And I said, "Well, you know what? Let's go and have a look." And it was it was weird, to be fair. It was awkward. So there's no place in Earth where you can go and you feel weird. So when you are outside a theater or a cinema or outside any building, you just say, "Oh, well, I'm just here." But when I was outside that prison, because we stopped with our car and we were just looking, and this prison has it's not an internal prison. There are many rooms that are you can see them from the street and from the road, and you can see there, and you can see these cells, some with lights, and we just thought, oh, there are prisoners there. So there are people. I don't know. Are they different? Of course, they committed crimes. I know the reason why they're there. At least I hope, because innocent prisoners, I can't, I can't stand it. But it was such a weird feeling. Um, that when I got back home, I was still thinking about it. I
Yeah.
was still thinking I
You
was
think about
outside a
it a lot.
prison.
Like to this day, I
Yeah,
still think about how normal those women were. Like just having a conversation with a normal group of women. Like you don't think about their crimes.
yeah. You just and think of this when some of these people manage to escape, because this prison I was talking about is near some houses, so it's not in a rural area just by
There's a
themselves.
prison near
It's
my house as well, like literally down the
yeah,
road.
yeah. So when some people manage to escape, how do the people living around there behave? Do they just close all their doors, or like there's a I don't know, a tank on the run, or
I don't think
uh,
when people escape prison, like the first thing they're gonna do is like start mass murdering people. But it is
right?
scary because it happened in Cape Town. I think last year or this year there was a mass prison break, and they
Oh,
were just like running wild. I don't know like what's their point of escaping prison, like what's your aim, like are you going back to your
yeah.
family or are you going to
What
commit
do you
more
do
crimes? But like this, oh, I guess that they have like this overwhelming rush, this
for
adrenaline rush from
freedom?
escaping this. They probably don't even know what they're doing.
So if you had if you had, let's hope not, of course, but if you had life sentence, and overnight someone comes and says, okay, the door is open, you can go. Uh, what would be the first thing you do?
Okay, wait, it depends on what kind of life I'm living in prison.
Bad.
okay, if conditions were really bad in prison and
Mm-hmm.
I was told I could escape, the
Mm.
first thing I would do,
Would you escape?
yes, I'd go get a burger.
Mm. Okay. Let's pretend burgers are the best in town in prison.
I would go back. I would go back to my family.
Yeah, me too, maybe. Me too. Well, I'm,
But I mean, it's
you know,
like I don't know about Italy, but in South Africa, people have better lives in prison than they do out of it. So they're getting educated in prison. They're getting 3 meals a day. Sometimes they can't afford that out of
hmm
prison. So a lot of the times, like if people are released, they will commit petty crimes just to get back into prison because they know
yeah, no,
where their next meal is coming from. They know they have a shelter. They know they have a roof over their head. They're
yeah.
gonna be so oftentimes, yeah, in South Africa, prison is actually a better life for them.
I think, you know what? I think one way to improve prisons is, except for some extreme cases of crime, so serial killers or people like that, I think let's call them regular prisoners, should allowed to have a business in prison. So hear me out. If I'm a prisoner and I'm good at making burgers, why shouldn't I be making burgers for people? Like, let's say this prison is in a
But why
commercial
can't they
area,
do that
like,
outside of prison?
because they're in prison. So you need. This is where we differ because I think that prison should be there, should be a mean to say, okay, if you behave badly, you're going to get incarcerated
But they do
for a
run
specific.
businesses in prison, you know that.
No, not illegal, not illegal businesses.
No,
I'm
no,
talking.
it's like the between the wardens and the prisoners, the stuff that they actually smuggle into prison. I don't know about anywhere else, but in
Yeah, yeah,
South
but
Africa,
I
it's
was,
like full on businesses. Like, I mean, they'll sell sweets and
yeah, of
whatever
course.
their families. Yeah.
That's why I'm talking of proper businesses. So I think that every day prisons should be open to all people to get there. So if I'm working like near a prison and I'm on my lunch break and I want a burger and I know that that prisoner makes very good burgers, why would I go to McDonald's, for instance, rather than go there, have a burger? So that prisoner, when he gets out of prison, he can open his burger shop, and he will have clients coming to him because
But
they
then
know
you know
him.
what happens with that is, so I'm just being playing devil's advocate
Yeah,
here.
yeah, of course.
So because this guy's now making money, there will be prisoners who don't want to do anything, who don't want to run businesses and
Hmm.
stuff. They would rather then demand and steal from the people who are making an honest living. And or times they get jealous that this guy is making money and they'll order a hit on this guy. So
Yeah, of course. That
it
I mean,
obviously becomes very dangerous.
my system, my system goes on the basis of every single person, be that person in prison or free, they should be guaranteed safety and security. So there's no room for these kind of things. They shouldn't be there now, let alone in a functional prison system. I think
My
that
whole thing, though, is preventing the stage where people have to be imprisoned or punished for anything. Like, instead of pumping all this money into police systems and
Mhm.
other violent things and stupid nonsense, like, why are governments not putting enough money into schooling systems, providing therapy for communities, empowering communities,
Do you think a
doing
rapist
no,
deserves
no,
a
no,
schooling system?
no, before, no, so to prevent people from becoming rapists and thieves, and I think it starts at grassroots level. Like, you give them, it's, but also like being a rapist, there's obviously more to it than just they're an evil person. Like mentally, there's something wrong with that person. And I feel like kids who grow up in violent homes or violent environments need to be, go through therapy at a young age to prevent them from becoming a hazard to society. So
Yeah, I
more
agree.
funding needs to be given to make sure a child has a good and a safe life to prevent them from becoming sociopaths. I mean, you can pick up when a child is going to be a crazy person. Have you seen
R-
that video of this child telling the teacher that he wanted to kill everyone?
no. What kind of videos are you getting suggested?
It was this video of this American kid, and his teacher was asking him questions, and he was like, oh, she asked him what he wants to be when he's older, and he was like, a murderer. And she
Oh,
was like, why? He's like, I like murderers and I like guns and I like killing people and I'll kill everyone except my family. And she was like, even me? And he was like, not you. But that is concerning.
all right. Thank you. It's good. It's good then.
It was
No,
funny,
but
but it wasn't
realistically,
funny.
even even with more funding, with therapy for kids and everything, realistically, there are always going to be rapists and sociopaths and pedophiles and all people of these sorts. That's why I think that, again, realistically, we will always need a prison system, which, mind me, is it has to be very, very different from the current prison system. But there has to be a prison system. It's the only way we can somehow protect the people who did nothing wrong, let's say. So that's how I see it. Um, but yeah, all in all, I do agree with your vision. I do hope that
But
more
it
therapy.
is a topic that I am like reading more about. So,
Mm.
my opinions will evolve as we go along. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
more
of course.
opinions on this.
We
But right
can we can
now, this is my stance.
okay, we can pick
We
it
can
up
address it in
again.
a few months' time again.
Yeah, that's what I was. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So it's been really fun. Shall we do Song of the Week? Because I haven't listened to any. Oh yes, I found there's this tennis player, this Canadian tennis player, who whom I just just realized he also does music.
Oh,
And yeah, and the name of the tennis player is Denis Shapovalov, and I've listened yesterday to Drip by him. It's great.
drip.
He's actually good. Drip, yes, and he's actually very good. To be fair, um,
Okay,
just
I'm gonna
listen to
look for
it.
this.
Yeah, I loved it. How about you?
Um, I'm gonna come back to Majid Jordan, and their
Hmm.
new single "Summer Rain" is my song of the week.
Okay. Um. Yeah.
Wait, you know what I wanted to
So
ask you? Is it true that Antonio Giovinazzi is going to get money from the government, the Italian government, to continue his F1 career?
So it's true that it has been requested. It is not um it is not sure that he's going to, and I think he's not going to. Um
If I was
because
the Italian government, I would give him all the money he needs.
no, I
The
wouldn't.
socialism
Not
would leave my body.
no, No. Sorry. That's a Chinese thing to do. To be fair, I think China is the only country which is pumping money into its sportsmen. So yeah, no, we're hardly going to do it.
Whereas
So
the
sorry.
South African government steals money from sports people, huh? Sure.
That's quite the contrary of what.
Flip.
Oh god. Anyway,
I personally would fund Antonio.
yeah, you can go and
He's a
fund it.
fine man.
We'll leave it here. Thank you for joining us. It's been great. Send us all your thoughts. And,
If he's listening to this podcast, we'll tag him in this podcast. He can give me a call. Just slide into my DMs.
right. So
I'll be his sponsorship manager.
On the note of Horny Nabila, we shall wish you a very fine weekend, and we will talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.